Hello viewers, my name is Damilare. You are welcome back to the second phase of the topic reproduction. So in the last class we talked about asexual. So this class will be talking about sexual reproduction. What is the meaning of sexual reproduction? This involves the fusion of gametes or sex cells which result in the formation of zygotes. We fuse gametes. When we say gametes or sex cells, we are referring to the sperm and the egg. So they come together to produce zygotes. Then there is another type of sexual reproduction. We call it conjugation. Conjugation. Though this conjugation is common to paramecium. Paramecium undergoes that conjugation, and also spirogyra. So they can undergo the conjugation. Now, how will it happen? For example, if you look at the um, the spirogyra, so when they lie side by side, that means they stay beside each other. The lying side by side will bring about a protuberance. A protuberance. What does that mean? That means this part of spirogyra will stretch its body to the other one, and this will form what we call conjugation tube. Conjugation tube, so that the genetic content of this one will migrate to the other one, and finally you have the offspring, the zygote, which we call zygospore. Zygospore. So that's another aspect of sexual reproduction, but our focus today will be on fusion. Fusion, don't forget we said we have conjugation, so which I've explained, but our focus will be on fusion of gametes. So what can we say about fusion of gametes? Before we go into that, the first thing is, remember, before there will be a sexual reproduction, our focus will be on human beings now. Before there will be fusion of gametes, it means there's a stage a man will reach, there's a stage a woman will reach before sexual reproduction can bring results. So, and what stage is that? That's the stage of puberty. So this is the age at which the sex hormone, talking about the hormones like the testosterone, the estrogen, progesterone in the male and the female. So the age at which the sex hormone and gamete begin to be produced, and the boy and girl become sexually matured. So that is the puberty stage. So in males, after puberty, testes starts producing sperms and the male sex hormone called testosterone. But in female, after puberty, ovaries start producing ova, that means eggs, and female sex hormone, estrogen. So male and female also start developing secondary sexual character. So once again, before we can talk of sexual reproduction, that means giving birth as a result of coming together of a male and female, it means the male must have gotten to the stage of puberty, the female must have gotten to the stage of puberty. So, and how will you know that the male has gotten to that stage? You said there will be sex hormone. Hormone. What is the hormone? For a male, we have testosterone, from the word testis, and from the female, we have the estrogen. Estrogen, we have the progesterone, and we also have prolactin. So all these hormones must be ready, because they are the ones that will aid the production of the sperms and the eggs. So these hormones, they are the ones that will push out those things that will be needed for reproduction. So the sex hormones must be ready. For male, like I said, testosterone, then for female, estrogen, progesterone, prolactin. So all these hormones must be ready, which is at puberty stage. Then for the female, which I've actually mentioned about their hormones, another thing is that their sexual characters must also be developed. So it means they must develop their second sexual characters. So that means ability to have intimacy, and the all the characteristics, the sexual characteristics in each of them, so is developed. So that means that's a stage of maturity. So it is when they are mature, sexually matured, and their hormones are ready, then they are good to go to have the reproduction. So two key things in this starting of this reproduction in human is that, one, both of them must have gone to a puberty stage where their sex hormones are ready. Then they must also be they must be matured sexually. They must mature. So now for a man, let's see what are the signs of the puberty stage. Number one, hair grows in their armpits, pubic region, chest and face. Body becomes muscular and their voice deepens, their chest and shoulders broaden. But for a female, the hair grows in armpits and pubic regions, mammary gland develop and enlarge, hips broaden, fallopian tube, uterus and vagina enlarge. So all these are the things that must be ready for reproduction. As hormones are ready, these sexual characters must also be ready. Now let's look at the male reproductive system. What are the things a male has that he can use for the reproduction? So starting from the source where the male sex cell will come from, that means the sperm comes out from what we call seminiferous tubule. Seminiferous tubule is a coily substance. Seminiferous tubule, a coily substance from which the sperm comes out. So, and this is also within what we call the testis. It comes out from within the testis. Once this sperm comes out from this seminiferous tubule inside the testis, it comes to the epididymis. There's something that looks like zigzag here, so that's the epididymis. So what is epididymis? A temporary storage area of sperm. That means where sperm will stay for a while before continuing its journey. So when it stays there temporarily, then it later leaves, and when it leaves, it enters what we call vas deferens. What is vas deferens? This is called sperm passage, where sperm can pass, and as it passes through this tube, it keeps moving. And as it moves, it will encounter three things on the way. Number one, it will encounter the prostate gland. It will also encounter the seminal vesicle and the one we call Cowper's gland. Cowper's gland, from the word cow. So it will encounter those three things. Now, what is the work of those three things? That means this Cowper's gland, this prostate gland, this seminal vesicle, what will they do to the sperm? As the sperm has left the seminiferous tubule, it has left the testis, it has passed through the vas deferens. So as it gets to their it's just like meeting the police on the road. So while driving, you can meet different maybe traffic warders or policemen. They will check your vehicle. So the same way, this seminal vesicle, prostate gland, Cowper's gland, they will only lubricate the passage for sperm before it goes out. Or they should also add what we call sucrose, that's sugar, to the sperm passage so that the sperm can have energy to travel. So that's the work of these three things. So once the sperm continues movement, it enters into what we call urethra. Urethra is just this tiny hole within the penis. That's the male organ. So the sperm will come out through this urethra. So, and once it goes out, so that's the end from the aspect of the man. So these are the different parts of the male reproductive system. So this is called the glands. Then the other ones, as I've mentioned, so they are for the male. Now let's continue the process. Don't forget the sperm are set out, so it means it's going into the female's body. So don't forget, in sexual reproduction there must be fusion, coming together of that sex cell, talking about the sperm. So it has to locate the egg in the female's body. Now take note of some things about the organs in man, like the testis. Why is it outside? Because of the body temperature. It can't be compared to his own temperature. His own body temperature must be lower than the body temperature. So that's why God had to put it outside, especially the scrotum. So because the temperature must not be too hot, so that it will not affect the sperm. So then don't forget, this testis, as it produces sperm, it can also secrete hormone, what we call testosterone. So it produces these two things, sperm and testosterone. That's the hormone that it can also make beard. That's the mustache, beards to be formed. That's this testosterone, and it can also make sperm to be produced. So testosterone makes sperm to be produced, and it produces the mustache, the beard. Now this testosterone also, it can help to develop secondary sexual characters. So developing secondary sexual characters. So, and I've talked about vas deferens, the passage of the sperm. We have talked about prostate and seminal. That means allowing the passage of, they are always aiding. They put the fluid, the secretion. They make it to be easy to move. Then the urethra, that's the tiny hole where the sperm passes within the penis. Now moving to the female's body, these are the female reproductive system. So looking at this, as the sperm is coming, it comes in through the vagina. Then there is a particular hole here called cervix. So the cervix opens for the sperm to enter. So once sperm enters, there is another portion here called the womb, or the uterus, the womb or the uterus. Though the sperm keeps moving until it gets to where we call fallopian tube, or you call it oviduct. So on getting to a fallopian tube or oviduct, it will be waiting for the egg to come. And how will the egg comes? It comes from this ovary. Inside the ovary, we have what we call Graafian follicle. Graafian follicle. So this Graafian follicle can secrete different hormones. It can produce what we call estrogen, and this estrogen is one that will make egg to be produced. So once again, inside the ovary there is Graafian follicle. That Graafian follicle must first be matured, it will be ripe, then it will rupture and then produce estrogen, and the estrogen will now aid production of egg. So apart from that, there is another yellow substance called corpus luteum. Corpus luteum inside this same ovary. Corpus luteum. So what will this corpus luteum, what will it do? So it will also aid release of what we call progesterone. So corpus luteum will aid the production of progesterone. This progesterone, you can use the word preg, that means for pregnancy, meaning that it will, the progesterone will come to the womb, it will come and expand the womb. Remember, the womb is elastic, so it can stretch because it has what we call the endometrium, and it also has the myometrium. The myo, that's the muscle, the metrium, that's the womb. So it means the womb muscle, so it can expand, so meaning that the progesterone will come and expand it. So apart from the expansion, it will also aid contraction. So that same progesterone aids contraction, it also aids movement, so it does a lot of things in preparing the womb. Now once the egg comes out, the coming out of the egg is what we call ovulation. Then there's another one we call oogenesis. That's oo. So this oogenesis, from the word genesis, beginning, that means beginning of the egg production, so coming out from the ovary. So and the egg keeps moving. How does the egg move? There is a kind of cilia. Cilia is that locomotory organ within this fallopian tube that drags the egg, it drags it out, and through what we call peristalsis, there will be a peristalsis, that's involuntary movement within this, the fallopian tube. And once the egg gets to this fallopian tube, then the sperm that has been coming also, then it will have contact with the egg. Once it has contact with the egg, that's what we call fertilization. It will fuse. And when you look at the egg, what are the things we have there? So it has nucleus at the center, then there are some things outside that egg, so which the acrosome of the sperm will neutralize. It will neutralize them, that means so that they will give way for it to enter. Once it enters into the egg, it will fertilize the egg. Then the egg will come back into this same womb and then implant itself. We call it implantation. It will implant itself to this wall of the womb. So once it implants itself, it keeps sinking into that wall until it completely enters and form what we call placenta to cover itself there. So as it's implant itself, so then it begins to get nutrients from that placenta. It gets blood and all the even waste. It exchanges its waste within that same placenta. So then after like 9 months, there will be a kind of full maturity of that fertilized egg. Remember, the egg has been fertilized, but the name will be changing. From fertilized egg, it becomes embryo, and finally we call it fetus. So at 9 months, then there will be a release, there will be an opening. The cervix that was closed before will be opened, and there will be a rhythmic contraction. That's RHYTHMIC. So a rhythmic contraction that will aid the release or the movement of the fetus, which is the baby, to come out of the womb. So that's an aspect of this topic. Now let me now begin to show you some pictures that will also help you to understand what we have talked about so far. Then before I also mention something about menstruation, because once the egg is not fertilized, menstruation will continue its process. So these are the different structures that you need to see. Like I mentioned, corpus luteum. This is the corpus luteum, the one I said will produce progesterone. You can see the color yellow. Then this is follicle. From the Graafian follicle, I said it will produce the estrogen, causing egg to be released. So that's the follicle. So that's how it operates. So we are coming back to before I come back to that of menstruation, there's something we call parturition, which is also birth. Though I've talked about it before, but let's see some notes here. It is brought about by dilation. That means birth is by dilation of cervix. Cervix will open, strong contraction will take place of the uterus and abdominal wall. At delivery, the pituitary gland also secrete prolactin. Take notes. It means prolactin is another hormone that will make milk to be ready in the mammary gland for the baby. So that's why pituitary gland has to release prolactin to aid production of the milk. Oxytocin, as I've said, that one is for egg, and also it can stimulate the myometrium to contract so that it can expel the fetus. So meaning that apart from oxytocin producing egg, oxytocin can also cause contraction. So that means when it's time for the baby to come out, so the oxytocin will also stimulate the propulsion, that means to propel the baby to come out. So this is accompanied by some pains, which we call labor pains. So oxytocin also stimulates milk let down by the mammary gland. So meaning that oxytocin is doing a lot of things. Oxytocin producing egg, oxytocin doing the work of contraction, also doing the work of milk secretion. The placenta also secretes what we call relaxin hormone prior to labor, which causes the ligaments within the pelvic girdle to loosen, providing more flexible passage for the delivery. So then now look at the process of birth. There are different processes of birth. Birth begins when the strong muscles in the wall of the uterus start to contract. So the first stage of birth, so called labor, is triggered by the hormone oxytocin. Like I said, is one that will trigger it. So in stage 1, the muscular walls of the uterus start to contract, slowly stretch the opening of the cervix. So it is that muscular wall of the uterus that will contract, that will expand. So as it's expanded, it will expand to open the cervix. So the pressure breaks the amniotic sac. That means where we have the amniotic fluid. That means the water within the womb. So it will release the water. So contraction gradually become more frequent, pushing the baby down towards the cervix, which become dilated to allow baby to pass through. So that's the stage 1, as you can see on the screen. That here the baby was inside the womb, but here the cervix has opened through that contraction. Then in stage 2, the vagina stretches to allow the baby to be born. So here after the cervix, after passing through the cervix, then the vagina will be the next one expanding, so crowning of the head. Then this third stage, stage 3, the baby is still attached to the placenta by the umbilical cord. So this is cut and tied. So the placenta breaks away from the wall of the uterus and passed out. So this stage 3 is called afterbirth. So the baby is still attached to the placenta after birth by the umbilical cord. So this is cut and tied. That means the cord that attaches the baby to the mother's womb, that cord must be cut. Since the baby is out, the cord must be cut. So then the placenta will now break away from the wall of the uterus and it will pass out at that stage 3. So these are the process of the birth, as you can see here. Labor, which is triggered by hormone oxytocin. So don't forget, it's oxytocin that will trigger that labor. The muscular walls of the uterus, like I said, it will start to contract. Then the pressure will break as it's pushing. It will break the amniotic sac so that the water, which is the amniotic fluid, will rush out. Then contractions become more frequent, pushing the baby down towards the cervix. Then cervix becomes dilated to allow the baby to pass. Vaginal tube stretches for the passage of the baby. The baby is still attached to the placenta by the umbilical cord, and I said placenta will now break away from the uterine wall and passes out. Then the umbilical cord is cut and tied. So that is how the birth takes place. So like I said earlier, that we'll also briefly talk about menstruation. So that means in case the fertilization did not occur, what will now happen? That means in case the sperm, you can see the structure of the sperm having what we call acrosome. This is what it normally used to penetrate into the egg. It will use it to release some fluid so that it can melt certain things in the egg. So the acrosome, then this is the nucleus controlling the activities of the sperm. This is the head, this is the centriole, and this is the mitochondria, the powerhouse of this sperm. That means the one giving energy to this sperm to travel a long distance. And take note, there's something also which you need to know, that when sperm is released, there are millions of these sperms that are being released every on daily basis. So, and out of them is only one that will be successful to fertilize the egg. Some of them, their tail will be detached in the on the long run. So this is the tail of the sperm. So then, like I said, okay, so this is also the structure of the egg, the one that will be fertilized by the sperm. So the egg has nucleus, and that's the major place where the sperm is coming to penetrate. So, and the cytoplasm, that's the body, the environment of the nucleus of the egg. Then these are the follicle cells. This is what I said, that acrosome of the sperm will melt. So it will melt all this. So once it's melted, then it can come in. So it will enter the vitelline wall. So that is how it occurs. So back to, okay, then there's another structure here, so that explains what happens inside the ovary of the female. Though I've explained all those things, it's just to show you the structure, what it looks like. As you can see here, this is the ovary. Inside the ovary, you can see the Graafian follicle. I talked about that. When it is matured, it will rupture, and then it will release the egg, so which is called mature ovum. And as it's doing that, remember this Graafian follicle, it was stimulated by a particular hormone called oxytocin. So it was one stimulating, and this is the corpus luteum, or yellow body, the one that I said we secrete progesterone for pregnancy, talking about the womb contraction or preparing the womb or expansion, and also everything that has to do with the womb, so for the baby to have a good place to stay. So it's the work of this corpus luteum. So let's now round it off with what I said earlier, which was about the menstruation. So what can we say about menstruation? Remember, the sperm has a target, and what is the target? To fertilize egg. So but in some cases, the sperm may not be able to get to where the egg is to fertilize it. So once it's unable to get there, then what we call menstruation will take place. How? Let me start with definition of menstruation. Every month, ovary releases one egg, and uterus prepares itself to receive this fertilized egg by developing thick spongy lining. So don't forget, every month one egg, but for man it will be millions of sperms. So and I said the egg must be fertilized, but if fertilization doesn't take place, egg along with the uterus lining will break down. It means the egg itself, it will break, then the uterus, the lining, that's um the wall that has been filled with blood, it will just burst. So, and then once it bursts, both the blood coming out from the wall of the womb and also the egg contents will be released. So in addition with mucus will follow it. So this cycle takes place roughly every month, and is known as menstruation. It can last for about 2 to 8 days. That means the person will experience this menstruation for like 2 to 8 days, depending on the body. And another thing is the disease that can come up as a result of sexual intercourse. We call it STD. So this disease are spread by sexual contact with an infected person, or like we have gonorrhea, we have syphilis, we have AIDS. So all these are the diseases as a result of sexual intercourse. So with what we have learned here today, we have seen how sexual reproduction occurs, and then the products. So if it is not produced, we know how menstruation also accompanies this. So thanks for listening. Then there is something which I also want to mention, sorry, which is about meiosis, so that everything will be covered in this video. So instead of waiting for another video to talk about this, because meiosis also goes along with sexual reproduction. So when we say meiosis, what does that mean? Look at this picture. From this picture, you can see here a particular circle. This circle represents zygotes. That means the products of that sperm and egg. This represents the sperm, and you can see like 23 lines drawn with red. So that 23 lines represents the chromosome, so which is haploid. Haploid means a single aspect of the chromosome. The same thing from the egg, it's also having 23 chromosomes, which is also haploid. But when these 23 of the egg and 23 of the sperm come together, it will become 46 in the zygote, the baby. So that shows that there will be 46 chromosomes. So 23 from the male, which can be either Y or X, then 23 from the female, which is always X. So it means when the two of them comes together, it will determine the gender, either male or female. Now when both of them come together, so they will be on the same position, they will have the same shape, the same size, even the same genetic content, and that's what we call homologous chromosome. Homologous chromosome. And there is something we call natural selection according to Darwin's theory of evolution. Darwin's theory of evolution. So it talks about natural selection. Like the sperm, naturally it will select a particular egg. That means randomly, luckily. So you can select random, and that's why there's what we call diversification, variation. So it means in sexual reproduction there is variation, but in asexual, so there is no variation. So because of the recombination that takes place here. So the chromosomes haploid in egg is naturally selected by 23 chromosomes haploid in a luckily survived sperm out of millions. Now, like I said, the zygotes, it has 2 end diploid chromosome or 46, and it also undergoes before it takes the meiosis process. So it would have undergone what we call mitosis, so by division, so or replication of its copy. It means if you look at in sexual reproduction, there's something we call germ cell. Germ cell is one of the products of mitosis. When there is mitosis, cell division going on, so as the 2 end diploid is dividing into another 2 end diploid, that means duplicating. So if it keeps reproducing, we talked of somatic cells the other time. So all those somatic cells that are produced as a result of mitosis, so one of them may also produce germ cell, which is for reproduction. So the germ cell now can also repeat the same mitosis, or it should now undergo meiosis. What is now the meiosis? So in meiosis, the 2 end diploid, it will undergo two-way process. So that means it will first split into 2, then later into 4. But the 4, they will all be haploid. So this is a continuous process. So as I round off with that of the meiosis, so let's also look at some things here from the second aspect. So as I've said about meiosis, that it has to do with, it will divide twice, unlike mitosis that will divide once. This one will divide twice into 4 haploid. As you can see here, N in 4 places. Each of the N can represent sperm, it can represent egg. So and when they recombine, you begin to see certain differences. So thanks for listening.